What inspires, excites, and drives today's man? I'm Cris Collinsworth. The answers inside the vault. What's the hardest job today's man will ever have?
I was up at 5 in the morning this morning. My kids were having a rave in the living room.
Raising his kids, that's what. No training, no handbook, no shortcut.
It makes you care about human life in a way you haven't before.
Actress and host Jill Wagner and comedian Alonzo Bodden join me and top experts from The New Yorker, Wired, and Motor Trend to unlock the secrets of modern fatherhood. We're going coast to coast. What's the best advice your father ever gave you?
Don't be stupid.
Keep my mouth shut.
Then, the average teenager sends how many texts a day?
Imagine my 18-year-old niece cutting back to only 150 texts a day.
The two most terrifying words in the parent's dictionary, learner's permit.
Eyes up and no texting. Go for it.
The three things you have to teach your kid behind the wheel, and the one thing you better teach yourself. Plus, a giant surprise for me. Hey, I'm Cris Collinsworth, and you are inside the vault. Say hi to Jill Wagner and Alonzo Bodden, along with Nick Thompson from The New Yorker and Wired Magazine's Jason Tanz. And today's topic, the modern father. And I've got 4 kids, so I am like the godfather of this segment here. And Nick, you have
2.
Jason,
1.
You have 1.
None.
So you guys are like innocent bystanders on this one.
I was raised by my dad, so I feel like I can weigh in a little bit.
Single father?
Single father ever since I was 5 years old, raised my brother and I. He was basically my mother and my father.
How about that?
He did a really good job, yeah, and I think men are totally capable of doing that.
Yeah, I've been called by my kids the mother and father as well on occasion. They get a little upset with you sometimes. This is, for a lot of men, a huge step because ain't no manual out there that's going to tell you how you're supposed to be a dad. And what's it been like for you guys sort of wading into the water?
I think it makes you understand and respect your parents more. I thought it makes you care about human life in a way you haven't before.
Saying, like, I'm responsible for whatever that kid is going through right now makes you very much more in touch with not only what that kid is going through, but pretty much what everybody else is going through, too. It's made me much more aware of the world around me.
Now, talk a little bit about dads. What's the best advice you ever got? What's something that's stuck with you?
The best advice he ever gave me was to, right when I started, the woman who would become my wife, he sort of immediately recognized that she was the right one for all the right reasons. It would become clear and said, marry her. I mean, there are things that fathers know that other people outside of you who haven't seen you grow up from the time you're a tiny infant don't know.
Yeah, my dad, I would say, his example was the best advice I could have gotten. He was a doctor and a very dedicated and caring doctor. So on the one hand, we'd run into people in the grocery store who would, run into him and say, "Oh my God, Dr. Tanz, you've been amazing." And that always really registered with me, to really take pride in your work and really care about other people.
Well, the best lesson my dad ever taught me was...
What's the best piece of advice your dad ever gave you?
Don't ever let your alligator mouth overload your hummingbird butt.
The best fatherly advice I ever received is, if you're gonna lie, lie good.
It's to seize the day and live for the moment.
Look at people's shoes. Because when you look at people's shoes, you can tell who they are, what they do.
What my dad taught me was to go to work every day.
Find something that no one else wants to do and do that well, because then you'll always have a job.
Now I'm always looking for work. Even as I'm talking to you, I'm looking over your shoulder in case they're hiring down the road.
Don't be stupid.
To keep my mouth shut.
What's yours is hers, and what's hers is hers too.
Never leave the house without $300 cash on you.
Don't trust a man without any facial hair.
When paying bills, always pay yourself first.
He always told me to put your family before everything else.
What's the worst advice your dad ever gave you?
Probably to quit hockey, I would think, and start working.
Don't give in to a woman. That's horrible. You have to. They'll win anyway.
So true.
That guy fully understands the way of the world right there. I tell you, I did have my dad one time, and I had a brother, and so we're always fighting and scrapping and doing all the things that brothers end up doing. And so he used to paddle us with a fraternity paddle, and pretty soon he just gave up. It was like, there's no way this is impacting these guys. So one Saturday morning, we were in trouble. He had the paddle in his hand, and he goes, "This isn't doing any good," puts it down, and he picks up the book, how to win friends and influence people.
Yes.
This golden Saturday morning, we sat in our room for 12 straight hours while this man tortured us in a way that no paddle ever could and read us that entire stinking book. I have never been so miserable in my whole life. And I keep threatening my kids with it. One too many jokes around the old man. Is that what you're trying to say? Well, it's not really easy for anybody. And a lot of people think that celebs have it easier. They've got the nannies, the means, and let's see what some of the most famous dads around have to say about being a dad.
The most important thing for me in the day is getting the boys to school in the morning and then picking them up in the afternoon.
To be able to roughhouse with them and take them golfing with me and to the park, and so it's great.
Everyone said to me, it gets better, and I haven't. It's been 2 years. It hasn't. It's gotten significantly worse every day. I was up at 5 in the morning this morning. My kids were having a rave in the living room. I'm like, girls, what is going on here? And they're like,
That's the good stuff right there. It is amazing, though, that it changes so fast. And I've heard people say this, and if I had any advice that I would give, there are moments where you start to go, I can't take it anymore. There's 4 of these kids under 6, and my house is completely ripped to shreds. And then one day you wake up and you go, not one of them wants to hang around with me anymore. For the first 13 years, then it's every day, Dad, can we, Dad, Dad, and then all of a sudden it's their friends, and you better treasure it while you got the chance, because it doesn't last that long.
I think the best parenting advice is just be the kind of person you want your kid to be. Like, I freak out sometimes when I see my kid, he already knows his way around an iPhone. Like, he can like open up, his little ABC thing on the iPad. And it bothers me
How
a little
old?
bit. He's 18 months, and
he's going to be editor of Wired here pretty soon.
Well, I'll be working for him one day.
I think his son is a very handsome young man. Another thing that's happening is that advice keeps changing. And one of the things that's hard about a father is to know what advice to follow, right? There's a very interesting story that just came out in The New Yorker, and it's about allergies. And the conventional wisdom for a long time was that you shouldn't feed the kids allergenic food until they're 2 or maybe later. And now the conventional wisdom is sort of flipping, that really you should start feeding them fairly early.
Like peanuts and stuff like that?
You should introduce them to peanuts and other stuff that they can have allergic reactions to. One thing that people have looked at is that in the developing world, very few people have allergies. In the developed world, so in the United States and the UK, there's a huge amount of allergies, and it's increasing.
Like, my daughter has unbelievable peanut allergies. I mean, she cannot be around these things at all.
Well, but right now, when you've already got an allergy, I'm not a doctor. I mean, I obviously don't know the real answer to this, but what we're going to do with my...
Just play one on TV. I can't help myself. Every time I hear that line,
But with my 6-month-old, we're going to introduce him to these kinds of foods much earlier than we did with my 2.5-year-old.
I just have one last question. Jason, is your son that E-Trade baby? Is that... Good. All right, when we come back, digital dads, Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, it's all keeping us connected with our kids. Inside the Vault, we'll be right back from different neighborhoods.